Hello and welcome to the Savage Stream, the weekly live stream where we talk all things Star Trek. And today I'm going to be reviewing my thoughts, questions, and predictions about Starfleet Academy Season 1, Episode 4. But before we get started on that, I just want to say hello to everyone who is watching live and hello to everyone who is watching on the replay. As always, timestamps will be below so that if you are watching on the replay, you can jump ahead at any time. I want to give a special shout out to channel members. Go ahead and drop a : moopsie : in the chat if you are here, / when you are here. Before I get started into jumping into all my thoughts about this episode, I want to let you know that there will be major spoilers coming, okay? Like all the spoilers. So if you do not like spoilers, or if you do plan on watching the show at some point, go ahead and skip this live stream, go watch other live streams I've done on my channel, or come back in a couple weeks when we have wrapped up all of our review of Starfleet Academy. Okay, on that note, let's jump into some thoughts. So, just so you know, this particular episode, the thumbnail for it was just a picture of the one Klingon cadet, Jaden, and he was kind of in this, like a brown kind of a forest situation, and the titles of the episodes have not really meant much to me. I think maybe they're all in Latin. I don't know. Maybe there's some Easter egg there. Maybe there's some poetic connection. I don't know. But they don't make any sense to me. So I had no thoughts going into it as far as the title, but seeing just this lone Klingon in this brownie forest. Ooh, I'm loving all the moopsies and colons and barrels in the chat. But seeing that, my thought was, okay, maybe this is a Jaden episode. Maybe, but thumbnails can be, kind of random sometimes. But I also thought, maybe this is an away mission episode. So I was kind of excited about that. Excited / nervous. Didn't really know what to expect. Because there was an episode like this on Discovery, where it was after the Academy reopened and Tilly had left Discovery to go teach at the Academy. And it was a Tilly episode where she had a bunch of cadets, including Adira, and they went on an away mission to some, I don't know, moon, planet, whatever. They were going somewhere, shuttle crashed, of course. They found themselves on this, I think it was a moon, and they ended up fighting this like invisible electricity monster, and they had to all work together and have good teamwork to not be electrocuted, eaten, I don't know. It was really weird. Discovery has a thing about electricity monsters, but to be fair, there were a lot of electricity monsters in TNG, so maybe that's just like a callback. So when I saw Jaden in this forest and not on a spaceship, I was like, ooh, is this another away mission episode? But instead of Discovery, it's Academy style. And then I was like, what's going to happen? Are we going to have another invisible alien that also has electricity that's going to come in and just like start eating cadets, or what the heck? Turns out none of that. It ended up being like a bunch of flashbacks for Jaden and more about his backstory, which was actually super interesting. Okay, so those are my initial thoughts, was just kind of like, what are we getting into? Is somebody going to get eaten? That didn't happen. Okay, jumping right into the episode, starting with Act 1. This is a Jaden-focused episode, so we get his issues within the first, 6 minutes or so of the episode. So basically it starts out with Ake giving a speech, which I'm kind of loving the Ake speeches. But shortly after that, it moves on to the Doctor. The Doctor is teaching a class, the EMH from Voyager. He's teaching a class on whatever, I don't know. But he starts out with this quote from Judge Seti. And Judge Seti was cited, like this quote that he says was a quote that Picard said in the drumhead to his daughter, who I think was an admiral, right? Admiral Seti, when she was doing this whole witch hunt throughout the Enterprise to try to find the traitors who were trying to sabotage the ship. But it turned out that there was no traitor trying to sabotage the ship, that there was an explosion in engineering because of faulty parts or something like that. But once she found that out, she didn't care. She was still like, there's a traitor, I'm going to find them, da-da-da. And so Picard gives this speech where he quotes her father, who she adores, and it's just like, what you're doing is wrong, basically, which causes her to lose her freaking mind. She goes off on Picard, and then there's other admirals there that are kind of like, they've come to check out the trial to see what's going on, because she's told them that she's rooting out evil, and Picard's told them she is crazy and needs to get off his ship. So after she loses her mind, the other admiral, who's like, I guess her boss or whatever, is just like, yeah, she's kind of cray. And he just kind of gets up and silently walks out, and she realizes, oh, I think I messed up. It's a very satisfying moment in that episode. Anyways, this episode opens with that quote, the same quote that Picard used, which I really just, I don't know. That was like a nice little Easter egg. I don't know if that was totally necessary. I don't know if it's necessary for them to constantly call back or refer to or connect to older stuff, but I really appreciated it, especially in this context. You didn't have to have seen the drumhead. You didn't have to know anything about Judge Settee or Admiral Settee or any of that to appreciate the quote and the context in which it was given. Then the Doctor goes on to talk about how he had to argue for his own existence. From another episode, this is an episode of Voyager called Author, where the Doctor wrote a book. He wrote a holonovel, and it was about the crew of Voyager, but it painted them in a very unflattering light, shall we say. And the crew finally convinced him that his depictions of them, while very entertaining, were super like mean, and also if he sends that off to Earth, people are going to think that that's how they really are. And is that how he really sees them? So he realized the error of his ways. He reached out to his publisher and was like, hey, I need to make a few edits on the holonovel before you kind of distribute it. And the publisher was like, I've already distributed it. I'm sending it everywhere. Like, it's mine now. You're not even a real person, so you don't have any rights. You just wrote a story for me. Kind of like, well, it's funny because now ChatGPT can totally write people's stories, but it uses other people's stories that it's copying. So it's different from what the Doctor is doing. It was his own story based off of his experiences and then just dramatized. Anyways, more speeches, another trial episode, and in the end, they did not, the judge advocate, or because he wasn't a judge, he was some kind of a, what's the word? Not an advocate. He was, okay, the word's escaping me. But the person who was adjudicating the situation, in the end, did not say that the Doctor was a sentient life form who has all the rights and privileges thereof. But he did say that he had, whatever he said something like he could be a creator, something like that. Like he was going to go that far to be like, you have the rights to your own creative works, and this publisher has to pull all the copies so that you can fix it up and then resend it. Arbiter. Thank you, Karen. I was like, I would not have thought of that. That's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah, Chaotic Truth is here saying he really, really loved this episode. Yeah, so he talks about how he argued for his sentience using that, which is, sort of did, but obviously he's gained a lot more sentience and independence since then, which is something else. Like, I want to hear the Doctor's backstory. Like, I want to know, how did he survive the burn? But that's not what this episode is about. So he starts with that, and then he's like, all right, let's do some debates. We're talking about debates. We're talking about, the rights of this versus that. So let's start doing some debates. Okay, so he's calling everybody up to do these debates. And Jaden starts freaking out. Like, he just starts tapping and like getting all nervous, and Caleb is like, what's going on? And he's just like, I don't like public speaking. And Caleb's like, okay. So then Caleb gets up and just shines. Like, he just crushes every single opponent. He's just the most amazing debater in the world, apparently. And it's Jaden's turn to go up, and he goes up and he just loses it. He loses his crap. He freezes, like his heart starts racing. He starts sweating and all of this. And so we discover pretty quickly that this is his kryptonite, amongst other things, right? Because he's a pretty shy Klingon. He's not very, he's not into war and combat and all of that. So he's freaking out about this. Caleb takes him to some random place. He is a master debater. So funny. Caleb takes him to some random place they're not supposed to be in or whatever, and gives him some comfort food. So he makes like a pizza, and he makes this warrior stew or whatever for Jaden, and Jaden's like, I can't eat that because I'm not a true warrior, which is the whole theme of this episode. Is Jaden a true warrior? What does it mean to be a true warrior? What does it mean to be Klingon? Which I think is a super interesting question that we got a lot of insight into through Worf's journey. But with Worf, we had the contrast of his brother, when we finally meet his brother, when we meet Kern, and then when we go to, like, when there was the whole war with the Duras family and all of that, we see more and more aspects of Klingon culture to see that's not just all like Worf. But here we're asking those questions again, but in this new timeline. So anywho, they're talking, just checking my notes, couple of funny moments from that, like he was pulling off all the pepperonis from his pizza, and Caleb was like, that's the best part. And Jaden was like, I will not eat meat that I did not kill in a fair fight. And Caleb's like, it's not even real. And Jane just spits it all out. And you're just like, But isn't nothing real? Like, isn't everything replicated? I don't know. I don't know what the burn has done to to all technologies, but I assume that they were able to like recover replicator technology and have been using it for a while. But anyways, after this whole situation, Jaden is called into Ake's office. And so at this moment, I'm kind of like, oh, does this have something to do with like a stage fright? Because that's kind of a weird thing for a chancellor to know/care about. But that's not it at all. He comes in and he comes to find out that there was this ship or freighter or something that was carrying 8 Klingon houses that had this catastrophic damage, and they think his parents might have been on it. And it's such a tragedy because, and it was a refugee ship, and it's such a tragedy because there's so few Klingons left after the Klingon homeworld exploded from the burn. And I was like, did we know this? Did I miss this? Was this common knowledge and we all knew this and I just forgot it? No, I think this is our first time being introduced to all these things, as far as I know. But I was like, what's going on? I was so disoriented. So then I went back and I looked up what exactly happened in the burn again. Like I remember something dilithium, explosions, everybody went to war, something. So just in case you're fuzzy on that, or if you skipped all of Discovery and don't even know what I'm talking about with the burn, there was this catastrophic event that occurred that caused all dilithium to go inert, which dilithium is the main fuel source for a lot of spaceships, but also a lot of technology, including on planets, not just in ships. So when it became inert, all the containers that held those that held the dilithium exploded because science. Everything exploded. So ships exploded, factories, or I guess they wouldn't be called factories because it's future time, but like future factories exploded, planets exploded, all kinds of stuff exploded. Like everybody died, almost everybody died. So now we have very few people left who happen to not be on a ship or happen to not be on one of those worlds that got destroyed or happen to not be near a space factory. So that's when the Federation switched from being all about like exploration and peace and let's all make friends with the universe. It switched to being very militaristic and very much like we need to protect our own. And because the Federation has a bunch of different planets, I don't know how the decisions were made, but from episode 2, right, when we saw the Beta Z delegates come, Beta Z was like on its own. You know, a bunch of planets were just like on its own. Earth, obviously being the center of things, still had some kind of little cushiony bubble of planets, I guess, that it was connected to. But everybody just left, and it was like everyone for themselves. Now, after all this time, they're finally at a place where they don't think the burn will happen again. I don't think they know what caused it. We find out what caused it in Discovery, but I don't know if Saru/the crew of Discovery ever tells Starfleet, or if maybe they tell Starfleet and it's top secret. So I see Windgrace is here. You probably remember this. I don't know if that information was shared throughout the Federation or if that was like a confidential situation of what caused the burn. But the point is, they don't think the burn's going to happen again. And it's probably not going to because it was such a 1 in a million fluke of this Kelpian who had superpowers. Like, what are the odds of that happening again? So now they're ready to rebuild. They're ready to make friends. They're ready to recover. Turns out that Kronos, the homeworld of the Klingons, was one of those worlds that was totally destroyed. And so now there's just like a handful of Klingons left, and they're all refugees, and they're all looking for new places to live. However, Klingons are still Klingons. So they're not accepting aid from the Federation or anything like that. They don't want any handouts. They don't want any charity, but they're still trying to find their way. So I guess this great empire is now just a handful of refugees. Kind of reminds me of like the Bajoran people without the oppression of the Cardassians, right? Where they're just kind of like spread around. So they refer to them as the Klingon diaspora. It's just whoever's left, and they've just kind of been scattered to the winds. So this catastrophe of this ship exploding with 8 different houses on it is like, we only have so many Klingons left, and a bunch of them have just been blown up. This is really awful. So Jaden gets this information, and you see they really did a good job, I think, in painting the shock. He doesn't have any facial expressions, but like the sound gets muted. He hears ringing in his ears. His heart's racing, like all those things that happen when you're just in a shock that you can't even comprehend. And he just kind of gets up and storms off. He's just like, I said goodbye to my family a long time ago. I don't even care. And walks away. Like, what? And as he's walking through the hallway, kind of in slow motion, all you see on all of the screens is just the ship exploding again and again and again. And you see all the cadets and teachers like, oh my gosh, looking and just horrified. And Jaden's just kind of like in a fog. This is when the flashbacks begin. But before I start that, let me just check in with the chat real quick. There was a bomb placed inside Kronos in Section 31, which made it easier to explode with the dilithium. Was that okay, Karen, was that in Discovery that they were trying to blow up that planet? Because, yeah, just remind me of where that backstory comes from. Because I do remember Section 31 up to some kind of shenanigans, but I also remember Ash was a secret Klingon who had a baby with the other Klingon, so why would they try to blow up Kronos? So I think I missed a step there somewhere. PS2 Chipper says that makes no sense. Romulans use micro black holes. Yes, Romulans use... Oh, it was in the Section 31 movie? Okay, so maybe I just blacked out. Because I do remember that movie, but obviously I don't remember every part of it because it was really dumb. Yeah, Romulans use a quantum singularity for their ships. So the Romulans are probably fine. The Romulans probably their planet did not explode and their ships did not explode. So that's fine. It was only the people who were using dilithium. And I think not even all ships use dilithium because didn't the Voyager use deuterium? So I think it was just the ones that were using dilithium specifically. But, feel free to fact check. Wellington says, yeah, now that I think about it, the Romulans could have taken over unless the Vulcans were like, nah, not while you live here. Yeah, because the Vulcans went on their own way as well. The Vulcans did their own thing, and just like the Beta Zeds did their own thing, like, they were also fine, and they did their own thing. I mean, I think a lot of them also died because of the burn, but they became independent, which is what happens in Discovery, is that kind of folding back in. And I think, actually, remind me if I'm wrong, for those of you who've watched Discovery more recently than me, I think that the Vulcans made peace with the Romulans. I think that's what happened. And yeah, and then they came back into the fold into the Federation in Discovery, I believe. So, okay, Act 2. Okay, this is where the flashbacks begin, which is what the thumbnail is from. So we see that Jaden was definitely a black sheep of his family. So he's got this small family. There's not like a ton of people, there's not a ton of Klingons anywhere. So they're all just living as refugees on random places, whatever rocks they can find. So his family is living in some random place. And his family is comprised of like 5 people or something. It's his mom, his dad, him, his brother, and like one other dude, maybe an uncle, cousin. I don't know. Doesn't seem like another brother, but I guess he could be. So it's a very small house. Like, it's a very small group of Klingons. And the dad and his brother, he's super close to his brother. And the dad is just like so proud of I think it's his older brother. Dad is so proud of his brother. And it's just like, you're a real Klingon. You're a real warrior. You love to hunt and all this other stuff. And he's like, all right, Jaden, it's your turn. Time for you to grow up. Time for you to go on the hunt. And he's like, I don't want to go on the hunt because I want to be a healer and I don't like killing things, which is like the most un-Klingon thing to say. And so his dad is just like always horrified by him. But his brother believes in him and encourages him and is like, yes, you're going to be a healer. You're going to be amazing. But he only encourages and believes in him in private because they all know his dad and probably his mom and probably that other random dude. They're not down with this life. They're not like, yeah, Jaden, go pursue your dreams. They're like, no, like, be a Klingon. Like, we are the only Klingons left. We need to preserve our culture. And at one point, the brother sneaks away with Jaden and tells their family, like, oh, I'm going to go teach him how to hunt and help him use the bow and arrow, whatever. But as they sneak away, he really gives them this little piece of Starfleet tech. And it's this sphere that is an invitation to come to the academy. It's like, we've reopened the academy. We're looking for cadets, da-da-da. And Jaden freaks out. He's like, you can't have this. This is like forbidden. This is alien technology. You're not allowed to have it. And his brother's like, psh, like, I don't care about that. Like, you need to take this up. You need to go join Starfleet. You have such a bright mind. You need to pursue that. You need to become a healer. Being a warrior is not your path and all this stuff. And so Jaden's like, okay, maybe. Now, the next time that brother and dad go off to trade at the market or whatever, brother is trying to steal more Starfleet tech. He's trying to steal a dermal regenerator. And somebody finds him, catches him, I don't know. They get in a fight, he gets stabbed, and the next thing you know, we don't see any of this. All we see is father and brother kind of like beam back into their campsite, and the brother's like bleeding and like coughing up blood and all this stuff, and Jaden's freaking out, the whole family's freaking out. And we find out the story from, I think, like the dad or whatever. He's like, he was trying to buy forbidden tech and somebody stabbed him, da-da-da. And the mom is just like, but why is the blood black? And the brother's just laughing. He's like, haha, the blade was poisoned. Like, he is such a Klingon. He's like, today's a good day to die. And Jaden's just like, no, today's a terrible day to die. Where is the dermal regenerator? Did you at least bring it home? Because we could use that to heal you right now, including somehow fixing the poison. He didn't say how that part would work, but we're assuming somehow the dermal regenerator would not only seal the wound, but also fix the poison. And he's like, the dad's like, no, it's alien technology. We will never use it. And so while he's railing against using this life-saving technology, brother dies, right? And then they all howl like the Klingons that they are. And it was super sad. Like, I legit cried multiple times in this episode. And I was like, I don't know if it's just like I'm sleepy or I'm hungry, I'm super emotional, or if this episode itself is making me super emotional. I couldn't really tell. But man, I cried. I was like, oh no, not brother. Oh, like we just met him and just started to like him. And then just like that, he's been killed by a poisoned blade. Like, what the F? So now brother's gone and dead. And now dad is like, all right, son, you're the only one left. Let's go on the hunt. Here's your bow. And he's just like, no, I'm good. And you're just like, oh my gosh. So they end up going on this hunt. He's like, all right, I'll go. He goes on the hunt. They find some bird flying over a cliffside or whatever. And the dad's like, this is your chance, Jaden. Make the kill. Once you kill the bird, you can be officially a warrior. You can own this bow and arrow. You can eat warrior stew. You can be a true Klingon. And Jaden, because he's a pacifist, is just like, I will not kill. So the dad's like, rah! And then he shoots an arrow. He misses the bird. And then he's just like, unbelievable. And he like pushes Jaden over, and he takes the little orb thing and throws it, and it smashes on the rocks, and he storms off. And while Jaden is sitting there like, what just happened? He sees his ship with his entire family like fly overhead and leave. And he's like, Father! Cried again. I was like, did they just abandon him on a planet without like supplies? Anyway, like, did they at least leave the bow and arrow? Like, he may change his mind about hunting if he needs to eat. We don't know what happened with all of that, but at some point he finds himself in the academy. So, you know, he made it. But yeah, that scene, I was like, what just happened? So that's what kind of set Jaden on this path of, I suppose the connection they were trying to make was, this is why he has a hard time speaking up, because when he spoke up with his family, he was always shunned or something like that. Maybe that's why he has a fear of public speaking. I'm not sure what the connection was there exactly, but also he has this whole thing of what does it mean to be Klingon, and is he really Klingon? And he says later on in the episode, he's like, I don't really fit in either world. I'm not really Klingon. I'm not really Starfleet. I'm just here. Which is such a hard place to be in. Okay, before I jump into the next chunk of story, let me check the chat really quick. Triad house, what's that mean? Oh, that was another dad? How did you know that? How did you know that? Did they say that in the episode and I missed it? Because I was seriously like, who is that other dude? I was like, is that an uncle? Like, did he even have a name? Let's see, hold on. Let me scroll back before I go into the next part. Chaotic Truth says, great episode. It really went into depth about how ritualistic the Klingons are. The mock battle for the new homeworld was incredible. Yeah, it's always good to watch. It's always fun to watch a space battle. Like, that never gets old. I don't think I've ever seen a space battle where I'm like, oh, not another space battle. I'm always like, ooh, lasers. Like, I'm here for it. Jonathan says, I like the episode. Karen says it's a triad house. And Wellington says Jaden has 2 dads and 1 mom, which I totally missed. Chaotic Truth said that too. How do you guys all know this? How do you know this and I did not catch this at all in this episode? Like, did they say this and I just missed the whole freaking line? Okay. Wingrace says dilithium regulates the reaction. Oh, okay, that makes more sense. Okay, thank you. So dilithium regulates the reaction. Without it, the reaction goes awry and explodes. Okay, that makes more sense. I was like, it becomes inert and then it explodes. I didn't get it. Okay. Chaotic Truth says the only problem he has with these Klingons are their locks, which could be an attribute of their house, but they look like black people, if that makes sense. Yeah, so Jaden has locks, but Jaden's mom has braids. Like, she has micro braids. So I thought that was actually interesting because Thok, who is half Klingon, has like the long mane of hair, and Klingons meaning Worf, did go through some hair style changes throughout TNG and then Deep Space Nine, but I think they settled on, like, if you look at season 7 of TNG, where they settled on like the long mane. Like, Worf had the long mane of hair. He didn't have that little bob anymore. And then it turned into like a braid or whatever in Picard. So same thing with the Duras sisters. They had this big, long mane of hair. So Vox still has that mane of hair, but the other Klingons that we see in this episode do not. And I thought that was an interesting choice because it has been like 1,000 years, so styles definitely will change. But I expected, similar to you probably, I expected like a big mane for all the men and women, like going all the way down. So that was actually my first time that I realized that Jaden had locks because of the contrast. When I saw his mom, I was like, oh, does she have braids? Oh, hold on, wait a minute, let me look at dad. Hold on. I was like, wait, hold up, the hairstyle's different. I didn't even notice that for the other 3 episodes. Karen says it's better than bald Klingons. Yeah, Klingons with this gorgeous, fabulous hair, making them bald is just so unfortunate. Although the Klingon that was originally before it became Ash, what was his name? Was it Voke or something? I don't know. Whatever that Klingon's name was, the one without a house or whatever, was so distinctive looking. I really like that because that character obviously became really important in the lore. So I like that they set him apart by making him this albino Klingon that like had no house and no name and all of that. That was really interesting. But yeah, I definitely liked it in Discovery when the Klingons all got hair and we got to see the just gorgeous manes. Yes, DJ Magic says I was hangry and didn't know it. I needed a Snickers. Dad said, have your butt in this car or we're leaving. Jonathan says it's all cultural, I thought. Which thing? Are you talking about the hair or are you talking about the whole episode? Because, yeah, I would agree with both. Wellington says Memory Alpha is not clear, but it looks like Navarre had both Romulans and Vulcans together before the burn, so their Vulcans may have kept the Romulans from taking over post-burn. Also, Wellington, maybe the Vulcans and Romulans had already become friends back in TNG days through the works of Spock, of Ambassador Spock, because that was the whole point when he showed up in TNG, was that he was trying to reunite the two worlds, the two beings. I don't know when Nemesis came out. Like, I don't remember the year, but obviously there were still some issues going on in Nemesis. But we could maybe just trust that whatever the work is that Spock started continued and was successful at some point before the burn, which again, it's like 1,000 years later. So that works for me. Oh, okay. Wingrace says Jaden told Caleb he was from a triad house. I missed that completely. Thank you so much. Shout out to PS2 Chipper for the 5 memberships. Jump on them while you can. DJ Magic says, had Worf looking like a Shakespeare actor. Okay, Jonathan G said that the hair is all cultural. Hair is very cultural. I mean, I guess I can't speak for other cultures. In the African American culture, hair is such an essential part of identity. And especially, I mean, for men and women, like it's such a huge part of self-expression. And even for myself, how I style my hair and what I do with my hair is such a big part of who I am, which is why it's so heartbreaking. This is changed, but it's so heartbreaking when things happen like, which is actually the point of this episode. Things like Black women are told they have to have straight hair, like in a ponytail, or basically they have to style their hair in a way that looks like a white woman's hair in order to be professional, in order to be acceptable in different jobs and different careers. It's really disheartening because it's like taking away the identity. And that's what this whole episode's about. It's about identity. It's about Jaden saying, who am I? What does it mean to be Klingon? Am I Klingon? What does it mean to be Starfleet? Am I Starfleet? You know, and is it Starfleet's role to tell Klingons who they need to be and how they need to be and how they need to act in order for them to belong? Similarly, like, do I have to have straight hair, like put in a little coiffed, you know, whatever shape, so that way I'm taken seriously and seen as professional or intelligent or capable or whatever? Can I have a big red fro and still be taken seriously? You know what I mean? Like, in certain contexts, no. People will be like, oh, just, you know, one look. Nope, not here. You know, in other contexts, it's like the more the merrier. So yeah, hair is absolutely very cultural in this episode and in real life. And I would imagine that my culture is not the only one where something like hair is super important. But for sure, I will speak for myself and like my whole entire family and all of my friends that are part of the African American community. Hair, along with like clothes and stuff like that, but it's like a very personal and like important part of self-expression. Anyways, okay. Act 3. Moving to the next part. Okay, so Starfleet finds a homeworld that is just like Kronos. it is the perfect place for the Klingons to relocate. So they don't have to be refugees, scrounging out a living wherever they can get it, trying to find moons and random colonies to be on. They can have their own planet. But the problem is, which is what Admiral Vance is telling to Ake, to Chancellor Ake, the challenge is Klingons do not accept charity. Like, they don't want a handout. They want to conquer things. They want to have agency. And they not only do they not want a handout, they will not take a handout. They will refuse it, which we saw when Dad let Son die because he was not going to use alien technology to save him, because that is forbidden. That's not what they believe in. Man, can you imagine making that kind of decision? I can't. I'm the kind of person who's like, shoot, I'll sneak some meds in your food if it's going to keep you alive. Like, I'm the person who's going to be like, I don't know. I guess when it comes to like life and death, all bets are off in some ways. I'm sure there's some lines I would draw, but like so many things, it's like, yes, I'm all of my morals until it's like someone I love is going to die unless I do something. I'm not going to be like, oh, well, that's forbidden technology. I'm going to be like, forbidden for schmidden. I'll go to jail. Let me save their life first. But that's just me. Anyways. In this part, Admiral Vance is like, how do we do this? And turns out that Ake has an ex who is a Klingon and who is essentially like the leader of what's left of the Klingon Empire. Because the Empire is no more. It's just a bunch of scattered houses all over the place. But he is the one that most of the houses listen to. So he's kind of their de facto leader. And I just freaking love that Ake has an ex who's like the leader of the Klingons. Like, because what it tells me is that Ake has such an interesting past. Because we also learned in last week's episode that she had the most legendary like prank when she was in the academy against some other group of cadets. And so she's a prankster. She, loves hooking up with Klingons apparently. So she's got some of that Jadzia Dax spirit going on. She's long lived. So she's really had like so many different lifetimes and so many different experiences. She was there when the Federation was what we remember the Federation to be. She was there during the burn. She was there in the aftermath. She's experienced so much. And I love that. I just hope they keep peeling back that character's backstory like an onion. I hope that not every week, but from time to time, I hope they just keep dropping stuff on us like that. Like, oh yeah, you didn't know she used to be like a princess of this random, like just random stuff. I just want them to keep dropping random stuff about Ake's like full, complete, crazy, amazing, interesting history. Anyways, this part was just an ex. This was an ex. So she talks to the ex. He comes over. They have a bunch of blood wine together. And she tries to convince him to convince his people to take this planet. And he's just like, no, straight up no. We don't want charity. We don't want your help. End of story. At the same time, we kind of switch gears to the classroom, to the doctor's class, and they're all thinking about what they want to talk about for their first school-wide debate. And somebody suggests that they talk about what's going on with the Klingons. Like, we should talk about whether or not the Klingons need to accept the Federation's help, or like basically force the Klingons to accept the Federation's help. And the doctor's just like, that's not appropriate. We just had this big tragedy. Like, that's not really something to talk about. And Jaden is the one who really advocates for it. He's like, we need to talk about it because everybody's talking about it anyways. This is what's on everybody's mind. We might as well talk about it together rather than have everybody just talk about it in whispers in the hallway. Like, let's just bring it to the front, which I actually thought was smart. But everybody was trying to be careful of his feelings. And he was just like so pissed by that. He was just like, let me take care of my own feelings. Like, do not walk on eggshells around me. Let me take care of my own feelings. Caleb offers to partner with him in the debate because we've all established that he is a master debater, right? So he's like, we can partner together. And also, I know that you're afraid of public speaking, so don't worry about it. And Jaden gets pissed at that too because he's like, I don't want you to speak for me. I'm going to speak for myself. Even though I'm terrified of public speaking, I still want to use my own words. So this is just a thing. This is just a thing. And that's the whole point of this, is just this argument, which leads to Act 4, which is all about conflict. Conflict on conflict on conflict. One major conflict is Jaden and Caleb. They have a huge falling out because Caleb keeps trying to be like, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you. And Jaden's just like, get away from me. Like, leave me alone. Let me be my own person. And at one point, Caleb says something about them being brothers, like, because we have this like paternal bond or whatever. And that was the last straw for Jaden. He was just like, you don't even know what it means to be in a family. You don't know what it means to have a people group. It's just you. You only care about yourself. You spout a bunch of facts. You have no context for it. You don't know what it's like to, he just like went off on him. And Caleb was just like, well, F you too, and just kind of goes his own separate ways. Um, Later on, we have Jaden preparing his speech in his room, and someone rings the doorbell, and he's like, go away. And then, of course, they come in anyways, which I actually kind of love, because I just love that Jaden's friends are not letting him self-isolate. As much as he's trying to just brood, they're like, we're still going to help you, and we're still going to love you, and we're still going to reach out. And hey, if you hang up the phone in our face, fine, but we're going to call you. And I actually appreciate that, because sometimes people need that, you know? Sometimes people need to know that you care enough to not just take the first no. You care enough to sometimes invade their space to be like, hey, I am here for you, and I'm not going to let you just slip through the cracks. So Darum just comes right in. He's like, hey, dude, what's going on? And Jaden's like, oh, get out. Leave me alone. I'm trying to practice my speech and brood, you know? And Darum is just like, Caleb is being more of a dick than usual. I don't know what you said to him, but can you please just, like, fix it? And he says, I want you to punch me in the face. I don't know why he said this. I think it was supposed to help Jaden get more confidence or something. I don't know. Let me know in the chat what you think that move was about, because I don't know what that was about. But he's like, I don't want to punch you in the face. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And he starts yelling, and then Darum's like, it feels good, right? Like yelling, ooh, that feels great. And then he's like, okay, here's what they taught us in my homeworld when we get afraid of something, to do like this, forget what kind of breathing he called it, but I've heard it called sniper breathing. I've heard it called box breathing. I've heard it called all kinds of things. But basically, like, let me teach you a breathing technique so that way it can calm all your nerves. And so he teaches them he teaches him this technique. And they have a little bit of a moment there. Was it just me? They had a little bit of a moment there where I was like, oh, okay, Darum. Okay, new Riker. Let's see what you got. They have a little moment. And then Jaden kind of snaps out of it and is like, get away from me and get out of my room. And so Darum's like, okay. And so Jaden goes back to kind of his brooding and trying to figure out what he wants to say. And then we go to the part where there's actually the debate. Yes, Karen says it was intimate. Yeah, okay. Oh, battle breathing. Yeah, maybe it was battle breathing. And Darum is like 1 inch from Jaden's face while he's teaching him this technique. And he's got his hand on his back and stuff. Which, I mean, when I was watching that scene, I'd be like, okay, I wouldn't mind being Jaden right now. But also, bit distracting from the breathing, sir. Like, how am I supposed to focus on my breath when you're all like cuddled up with me? That's like, that's very distracting. Anyways, the debate starts. And everyone's kind of like going side to side to side. Sam actually scores one, which I love. Like, go Sam. And then we get to Jaden and Caleb. So why did they pit Jaden against Caleb? We will never know. But they both go up. And Jaden starts to kind of lose it again. And then he looks over at Darum. And Darum's like, you got this, bro. Do your breathing. Do your battle breathing. And so he kind of breathes. And he starts doing his debate or his rebuttal. But then things quickly get heated between the two of them. Because it's sort of about Klingons, but it's sort of about Jaden and Caleb, and who Caleb thinks he is, who Jaden thinks he, like all these things. There's a lot of undertones, and they end up just like getting in each other's face and yelling at the top of their lungs at each other. And the doctor's like, stop, I said stop it. And they just keep going. And then he's like, you're both out of here, and kind of blows the whistle, and the both of them have to leave. And for some reason, there's like not really boundaries, exactly. For some reason, there's not really any like consequences for that, other than they storm off really angry. But like they come back later, and Jaden finishes his debate, but Caleb doesn't, and everyone's still sitting there. So I don't know what happened. This is like one of those moments, like in Harry Potter when they're doing the Triwizard Tournament, and they're like all underwater, and everyone's still sitting in the stands. What are they looking at? They can't see anything going on. They got to sit there for an hour looking at that black lake. I feel like maybe that's what was going on. When they left, everyone was still just sitting there like, okay, until they cooled off and were ready to come back. But anyways, before I go to the next act where it kind of like everything gets resolved, I want to check the chat really quick, because there is a lot. Praxis. His name was Praxis? Where did I get Vogue from? Was it? Okay. Dustin says the best character backstory in all of Trek. Who has the best character backstory in all of Trek? I'm just curious, because when this quote came in, I was on a rant. So remind me, Dustin, of who you're talking about. Are you talking about this one? This one just for Jaden? Wellington says, the show is very purposeful on hair. Caleb gets an involuntary haircut, but Jaden keeps his locks. That was a choice. Not sure what to make out of that. Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point, because they all walked through that thing and it like gave them their uniforms. But that's interesting, because if they were going into the military, they would obviously have to get haircuts. I'm assuming they still do that in the military, like that doesn't ever change. But you have to get your haircut. And the thing is, though, the academy is not the military in the way that the war college is, right? So, which is the whole last episode was about the contrast between this nice, disciplined war college and this kind of ragtag, very undisciplined academy. So that is a good question of like, who decided that Jaden needed to look different? I mean, it was a good haircut, but that's a good question. Jonathan says, okay, so for us, for humans, yes, that was a very close way to stand, but these two fools are not human. So I guess that's true. I guess personal boundaries could be species specific, but I'm a microbiologist by training, so I'm like, that was not COVID friendly, is what I was thinking. Actually, that's not what I was thinking. What I was thinking is, if I was in Jaden's position, I'd be very distracted and not able to do any bowel breathing. That's what I was thinking. Chaotic Truth says, people forget the Klingons were already a failing empire after a catastrophic resource collapse. Praxis. What is Praxis? What are you guys talking about? Is that the name of an episode? Can you tell me so I don't have to Google it? Like in the middle of the session? What is Praxis? What are you guys saying? What are you guys talking about? By the 32nd century, the burn likely erased over 90% of what remained. Wellington says intimate, but I didn't get romantic vibes. As a queer guy, I appreciated the non-romantic closeness. Not all gay guys smooch. I personally hope it's just friendship. So, okay, Wellington. So I was like, oh, maybe it's just like platonic, but like, no, I felt like there was a little spiciness there myself, because of the way they looked into each other's eyes for a moment. And then Jaden was like, oh, and then pushed him away. Like, no, this is not, I'm trying to focus on my speech. Like, I don't know. It felt like a moment to me, but if you feel like it was just this platonic closeness, that is totally fine. I am curious to see if anything comes of that in any way, like if there's ever a moment or a look or a flirt, or if they never mention it again. And if they never mention it again, then I agree with you. Or if they do more platonic gestures, like I don't know, like putting your arm around somebody or something, or like it's pretty platonic. I guess the way you do it could change, but that's like a pretty platonic gesture. So if I see more like just regular kind of like we're just good guy friends gestures, maybe I'll be like, oh, that wasn't intentional to be anything intimate. But I don't know. Smooching would definitely give it away, though. That would definitely give it. But remember, we saw Darren flirting with Genesis in like the first episode. So I feel like Darren's just like the Riker, like he's just a little, he's just charismatic, but he's also kind of a jerk, but he's like growing in that, right? Because they're young. So I don't know. Wait, hold on. Okay, DJ Magic says, this episode also shows how the youth of society are typically more open-minded than their elders. Yeah, I think that's part of being young. Part of being young is questioning what's gone before. Chaotic Truth says the best character backstory of all time is definitely Garrick. Garrick has a lot of twists and turns in his backstory. I don't know if I'd say it's the best backstory of all time, but the Garrick character was definitely like one of the most interesting characters for sure. Oh, okay. Praxis is from Star Trek 6 when the Klingon moon blew up. Thank you. I thought you were... Okay. Thank you for that, because I was like, what are you guys referring to? Okay. I was totally thinking something completely different. Dustin says, more specifically for me, this is the best character backstory episode in all of Trek. Oh, so this one particularly, like Jaden, finding out his backstory. I'll tell you, it made me cry more than anyone else's. The only other story I think I cried this much at was The Offspring when Lal died. Boohoo cried, and I will continue to do that every time I watch that episode. And what is the episode when the Doctor has a family? It's not called Family, is it? Real Life. I think it's called Real Life. The Voyager episode Real Life, where the Doctor has a family and his daughter dies. Those two episodes, like, forget it. Like, I lose it. And then the child also, when Troy's child died. So children dying, I think, is pretty upsetting for me. So those episodes I cried a lot on. But this one, oh my gosh, like I kept being like, poor Jaden. Oh, like, I don't know. I just really felt for him. And just like that isolation that he has, and knowing that he's the only Klingon cadet in the entire academy, and also feeling like he can never be a part of the Klingon empire such as it is now. He just feels like he's not a warrior. He can't be a warrior. So he does feel like he's not in either world and doesn't fit. And gosh, that's got to feel like so terrible. Yes, Dustin says this is the central point of movie ST6, which I know you have not seen. Clearly, it is true. I've not seen that. Okay, that makes more sense. The majority of the Empire's resources were stripped and mined from this moon that eventually exploded due to overmining. Oh, so it was due to overmining. It wasn't like a sabotage situation. So does that mean the Klingons destroyed themselves by accident? Is that what that means? Yikes. This destroyed their supply chain. And Jonathan says, well, it's cultural. In World War II Japan, soldiers would do poetry with each other. It was a way to express patriotism. Which part is cultural? That's a way to express patriotism. Because I might have said something and I missed that connection. So just let me know. Okay, moving on to Act 5. I'm just trying to look at my notes over this ring light here. Act 5. So this is the end. And I labeled it, Jaden saves the day. So at this point, we have seen Jaden and Caleb be kicked off of the stage and storm off and be all upset and everything else. Thok goes to talk to Jaden. Another moment where I cried, not gonna lie. Thok goes to talk to Jaden and is just like, you know what? I wanted to reach out to you earlier. Like, that was my instinct, was to reach out to you earlier and talk to you when this first happened. But I didn't want to overstep my boundaries. And she was like Reno likes to say, I didn't want to F it up. I think it's kind of funny when they say stuff like F it up, because like that's a word that they wouldn't be able to say on a network, but they do swear on the show. But like, if you look at any, what censures will happen when you swear, there's only certain words you can say and like only a certain amount of times in order for it to get played in certain places. So yeah, I just thought that was funny when they said, I don't want to F it up. It was like, you could have just used a different, like she could have just said screw it up, right? Like she could have just said that instead. But anyways, so she was like, I wanted to come talk to you, but I didn't want to mess it up. So she could have said mess it up, but I didn't want to mess it up. So I just didn't say anything. But now seeing you just exactly frack, what the frack? I didn't want to frack it up. Although that would have mixed in BSG, which might have confused some folks, but I would have loved it. I would have been here for it. And she's like, but I should have talked to you before and I need to talk to you now. And so Jaden kind of tells her his whole backstory, which we have seen in flashbacks. And Thok listens and is just like, no. Like she was like, no, you think that your father was so enraged by you that it caused him to miss the shot. And in his dishonor, he left you on that planet. And she was like, something I know about both Klingons and Jem'Hadar is that anger does not make us miss. Anger makes us hit the mark even more true. Which I was just like, ooh, getting chills just thinking about it now. She was just like, no, anger would make his shot even better. Like that, it fuels us, it drives us, it empowers us. So your father did not miss because he was angry. He missed on purpose because he wanted to let you go. Like, I'm starting to get choked up thinking about it, because what a powerful reframe for a young person. By the way, I'm a teacher, so this is like really hitting me hard with like my littles. But what a powerful reframe for a young person to tell them, you thought it was this, but it was actually this. You thought your dad was so ashamed of you that he ran away from you. But really, your dad saw who you really were all along. And this was the only way he could set you free without causing dishonor. Like, he let you go. And it wasn't just painful for you, it was painful for him. It's like, yeah, it hits me hard because I'm a teacher. It also hits me hard because I lost my dad when I was a kid. So it's just like, like daddy issues. And to have that reframe for Jaden to be like, oh, so all this time I thought I wasn't good enough. Actually, my dad was saying, you are good enough. Go do that. Go do that thing. You were made to do that. I see you. I've always seen you. Go do that. So then he was like, oh, like you just see this like new understanding of himself come into him. So now he goes back to the debate, which everyone's still seated. And he gets up on the podium and he's just like, look, Klingons have their own way. And it's not the Federation's place to tell them that they need to be different people in order to survive. So if we are going to help Klingons, we have to help them by letting them be Klingons, not by forcing them to be Federation or really human. But, you know, we're assuming all Federation participants agree with this kind of philosophy. And I really thought that was a powerful message, right? Because it was like, we can, we can offer aid without requiring assimilation. And I think that just as a Westerner, that is not the way that Europe rolled when they came and conquered the United States and turned it into the United States eventually. That's not how the United States rolls when they go out into other countries and, go to war. It's not like, let me help you and also preserve your culture. It's always, let me help you and make you more like me, the right one, because you're the wrong one, right? Like, you're just a know-nothing savage, but only if you adopt my ways and my beliefs and my philosophies will you reach enlightenment and be able to be prosperous like me, kind of a thing. So I really appreciate that this issue was brought up in this episode, and I really appreciate the way that Jaden brought it up and the way he talked about it, where he was just like, no, like, we don't need to assimilate to survive. Like, we have our own culture and our own values, and those are fine. They are fine the way they are. They don't need to be changed. They don't need to be adapted. Stop trying to change us. Stop trying to change me. Let us make our own way. And that also led him to this idea of, okay, Klingons can only conquer a world and take it in battle. They can't just be like handed a world, because that's just disgusting to them. So he comes up with this plan where he's like, all right, what if we go to war against the Klingon houses right around this perfect little planet, and if they beat us, they get to keep the planet. So that way they get to keep their honor, but they also get to earn the planet and not just be like handed it. So the Federation goes for it, and I actually really love this scene. We don't know this is the plan yet, but I love this scene where they're on the ship, they're on the bridge, and it's Jaden and Chancellor Ake is in the captain's chair, and Admiral Vance is there, and Jaden's just like, what if this is a terrible idea? What if I made a huge mistake? And Chancellor Ake is just like, Starfleet believes in you, so we think it's worth a shot. And it's so unrealistic. It's kind of like having Wesley on the bridge, right? Where they're like, yeah, Wesley, you plot the course or whatever. And you're just like, really? He's like 14. Like, should he be flying this ship? Like, should he be sitting there next to Data? Maybe he should be in class or something. It's kind of like that, where you're like, would Jaden really be in this situation? But I'm here for it. I'm still here for it. Like, I love it. Just like I loved seeing Wesley on the bridge. So I was just like, ooh, this is fun. What's going to happen? So then they get there, and then Ake comes over to her ex, and it's just like, and Admiral Vance is like, we declare war against all Klingon houses because you've violated Federation space. And you just see this grin come over the ex's face. I forget his name. That's why I keep calling him the ex. But you just see this grin because he's like, I know what you're up to. And this is like perfect. This is a way for us to find a new home planet, but without accepting charity. So next thing you know, he's like, oh, you're declaring war? Bet. And then the screen goes blank. And then you see all of these Starfleet ships checking in. And they're like, pew, 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 pew. And they're all just like warping in suddenly. Did you notice one of them was called the USS Riker? I was like, how'd Riker get a ship named after him? But anyways, a bunch of ships are kind of like warping in, and then the Klingon ships start warping in, and they're like, pew, 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 pew. And it looked so cool. And then they're like, battle! And they all start shooting each other and stuff. But they're hitting each other, but everyone's shields are fine. Everyone's ships are fine. I mean, the Federation is really not trying to blow up what's left of the Klingon Empire, right? And the Klingons are not stupid. They're not stupid. They know what's up. But to maintain their honor, and we have seen this before. We saw this a lot in Deep Space Nine. We might have seen it in TNG. I just can't. Maybe the episode when they go back to the calling it Kittimer. But we do see this sometimes where Klingons will compromise. Well, they'll kind of meet someone halfway in a way to maintain honor. So they're not stupid. They're not like, oh, you tricked us. But also, like, they need to at least be able to maintain their dignity. And that's what happens here. So they, like, shoot each other. And then after a few rounds of cool space fighting, then Ake's like, all right, that's enough. Federation surrenders. And they just, like, all pull out. And the X comes on the screen and he's like, we claim this planet as spoils of war. And they're like, well, congratulations. You can have it. You beat us fair and square. And so then he beams over to the ship. And they have like a formal, like, we have lost the battle, you guys have won the battle, and this is now your planet conversation. And it's really cool because Admiral Vance is like, you showed our ships mercy because we don't have any casualties. And the X is just like, yeah, same on our side. You know what I mean? Like, we both know what's going on, but we're not gonna say it out loud because then people get pissed, right? Then he turns to Jaden and he beams over the same bow that his dad tried to give him all that time ago. I think it was 18 months ago, 16 months ago. They said it in the beginning of the flashback. But he gave him the same exact bow, the warrior's bow. And he was like, you have been a warrior and not all warriors. I don't think he says, I think Thok says this, but like not all warriors have to like physically kill someone to be a warrior. There's different ways to fight for your people. There's different ways to win a battle. And so he gives him the bow, and Jaden accepts it. And he's also like, I checked in, your family's alive. They're now living on this new planet. And both his dads and his mom are on the planet, and they like show them on the planet, like being all happy, looking around and stuff. So yay, everybody lives. And Jaden managed to save his entire people. It's a really big ask. Like, it's a really big achievement for a cadet to save his entire people in like one swoop. So maybe that's a bit unrealistic. Maybe you could have taken smaller bites, but let me tell you, I was here for it. I was like, all of Klingon is saved. Like, I was totally crying again. I was like, Jaden, you did it, buddy. You did it. So he's able to accept the bow because he's like, I am a warrior. I am Klingon and I am Starfleet. He had a Worf moment, you know, where it's like, yeah, I do fit in both of these worlds. And then the final scene, we see him and Caleb, like, they're friends again, or they're at least talking to each other. And now he's Jaden's scarfing down that warrior stew that he didn't eat before. And Caleb's like, so how does it feel? You know, because now he's a warrior. He's officially made it. And he's like, oh yeah, the food's kind of spicy or whatever. So they kind of have this heart to heart, which was actually the perfect amount of heart to heart for me. It was like short, sweet, said what they needed to say, kept it moving. That's what I was here for. Like, that's all the heart to heart that I ever need. It was great. But basically Jaden was like, I'm sorry I was so mean to you because I do feel close to you. And I thought that I only had space in my heart for one brother. So if I let you be my brother, that means I'd have to turn my back on my actual brother who died, who I'm trying to honor by going into Starfleet and becoming a healer. So he was like, I felt like I could only pick one and I had to pick him. And so I'm sorry for that. And Caleb's just like, yeah, you know, I'm sorry too, because sometimes I can just be a dick. It's just like, he was like, I miss my mom and I feel like all out of sorts. And so when that happens, I just start crap with people, and that's just, you know, it's not cool, but it's just what I do, which is a lot of presence of mind. I don't think most people who have those behaviors are aware of those behaviors. But anyways, he's like, I'm sorry too. So they both apologize and they end as friends. And I think that was a really sweet ending. Okay, I have some final thoughts and some questions about what will happen next. But let me just check the chat really quick before I do that. Let's see. So Chaotic Truth says, yes, essentially this implies that the Klingons are not too bright due to their mining practices. Well, I don't know if that means the Klingons are not bright, because that was probably just more of a thinly veiled conversation about what's going on, like, on Earth, because fracking actually is like too much mining. That happens all the time. So, I mean, I guess you could argue that all humans are also really dumb, but it probably was more not saying Klingons are dumb. It was probably more saying unsustainable practices harm your planet and your longevity, would be my guess. Karen says, I love Thok being a mentor. Same. I loved it so much. And I like hearing her backstory too. I don't know if she always needs to say, when she talks about her history, I don't know if she always needs to say, my father was Jem'Hadar. My mother was Klingon. Like, we got it. I don't know if she has to say that every time she talks about her parents, but I do love this character, and I do love that mentoring moment. DJ Magic says they don't know how to cuss on the shows. It's it's like playing COD or Call of Duty, and hearing all the kids sneak on and try to sound tough, or our parents' generations try to use modern day slang. That's pretty funny. I didn't see it that way, but that's pretty funny. DJ Magic says, I love the mentorship speech. Truly one of the Trek episodes that kind of feels like a Roddenberry classic with so many things that mirror today's societies. You know, I think Dustin just said this on his channel on Mondays. They do a live stream every Monday. So if you don't want to wait till my live streams, check them out on Mondays. If you go to @DustinWing on YouTube. But he just said that on Monday, where he was like, this feels like a classic Trek episode in the way that it was set up. I'm going to take your word for it, because, you know, I'm not finished with all of season 1 of TOS yet. Patty says, I thought the same thing. Okay, so you guys are all on the same page with that. Karen says they missed an opportunity. They should have served root beer at the end of the episode. It's so cloying. That's funny. PS2 Chipper says, that is like when you make a child work for it. It's viewing them as less than. What do you mean by that, PS2 Chipper? Are you talking about becoming a warrior? Because it's more like a rite of passage. And rites of passage are a thing. Like, they are a thing in all societies. Sometimes it's, yeah, there are things. Sometimes it's your sweet 16. Like, it doesn't have to be go on a battle, go on a hunt, or whatever. But a rite of passage is a regular thing in society. Chaotic Truth says, even though it was a mock battle, the scene was magnificent. It was very fun to look at. Jonathan says they had the Klingon theme music. I didn't even notice. I think I was just so enamored by all the like blasting and seeing the shield. You know when they blast, they hit a ship and the shield like has that little radiation thing. That's all great. I love that. So I didn't even notice the music. Wellington says, I loved how the battle theater mimicked Jaden's dad missing the bird. Ooh. Oh, it was necessary theater to communicate through culture. Oh, I didn't even connect that, but you're absolutely right. Karen says, I thought he would have been given a batleth instead of a bow. Maybe 1,000 years ago, when all was well with the world, he would have gotten a batleth. And maybe now that they live a hunter-gatherer style life, a bow and arrow makes more sense. I don't really know. Because we haven't seen a single batleth. Or even, what was the little batleth that Worf used? A mekclef or something? We haven't seen that one either. I don't think. Did we? I don't think so. Chaotic Truth says, one thing I liked about this episode was the pronunciation of words. Kittimer was pronounced as Kittimore by Sam. This is on purpose because it is plausible to assume that language changes over time. They actually did that with Kronos as well. Instead of just calling it Kronos, they called it like Kronos or something like that. Like they put some extra stuff in it. And they did that with, I feel like there was another word too that they did like that. So Karen says, I disagree. They have recordings of logs, so they shouldn't be mispronouncing words. But it might not be mispronouncing words. It might be pronouncing them differently. Like how, what was this, like a couple years ago when Raven Simone came out and said, my name is Raven Simone, not Raven Simone. And y'all have been calling me the wrong thing my whole entire life. Could be a moment like that. Where they're just like, actually, this is how we pronounce it. I don't know. DJ Magic says, this very special episode is saved by the phaser AC Slater saved the Max with the help of his trusty friend Zach Morris. Oh, you're talking about Saved by the Bell, but instead it was Saved by the Jaden. Wingray says Praxis was an allegory to Chernobyl. Oh, okay. See, it was an allegory to some human thing, so it wasn't so much... Maybe it wasn't so much about Klingons being dumb as it was about mankind being... Yes, Kalis, that's what it was, Windrace. That's exactly what it was. Sorry, okay. Maybe it wasn't so much about Klingons being dumb as it was about mankind being irresponsible. But I don't know, since I have not seen that movie. So I really don't know what they were trying to... Because sometimes they are trying to say, like, other species are just dumb, right? Like, when we first see the Ferengi, they're just like, they're dumb. They're dumb. And eventually they evolve into something way cooler, but they start off pretty dumb the first few times we see them. Fighting with planning to lose to avoid the okay. Fighting with planning to lose to avoid the charity feeling. Yeah, I mean, but it was their only workaround to maintain their dignity. So it was that, or like keep living their life as refugees, which was unnecessary when there was a whole planet there. But yeah, I hear your point. Yes, it was Kales, and how did they pronounce it? I think it was like Kalesh or something like that. They pronounce that totally different. Sensors versus sensors. I did not notice that. Okay, final thoughts. The cowls, which is like the prosthetic that the Klingons wear over their foreheads, are very cool and interesting and distinct and unique, and they always are unique. They're like a fingerprint. Everyone's forehead ridges are unique. But I do not love them in this show. I mean, I love that they're unique, but they also looked like, I feel like I can see the seams. Like, I feel like on Jaden and on his dad, the dad that spoke, not the other dad, like you could see where the prosthetics were laid down on the nose because the ridges were just like right here. And it was like a little circular patch or like a little oval patch. And then also I feel like I can see where it's laid down on the sides. And maybe that's just in my head and I can't see it at all. But I wonder if it's because everything is super high def now that it's less seamless. I wonder, because you can't see that. I can't see that in Worf. Like I can't see where exactly the cowl connects to parts of his face. It just seems like his real alien head, right? So that was my only kind of like thing about this episode is I was like, man, I feel like I can see Jaden's seams all the times. Like I feel like I can just see where that prosthetic like is added to his face, but maybe that's just in my head, and maybe that's part of his design. Like maybe it's really supposed to be his cheekbone or something. I don't know. Another little nitpick is, how did Caleb win the debate when he was kicked off before he even finished? Did he win it for what happened in class? Because he didn't even finish his debate. Like, they yelled at each other, they got kicked off, the end. And then Jaden came back to be like, we need to help the Klingons in a Klingon way. And then we went to like the plan. So at the end, when Jaden's eating his Warriors meal, Caleb is like holding the trophy and he sets it down like, yeah. I'm like, how did he win the trophy? He didn't even finish the debate. I don't know. Maybe he got enough points in off screen or something. Another thing I noticed was there was a Kelpian in the background, and I was just so excited about that. So if the Federation does know that a Kelpian was responsible for the burn, which do they? But if they do, I feel like that Kelpian would have a really hard time in Starfleet. That people would think, they would all blame him or her for it. A thought I had too was, why are these teachers picking on students to prove a point? I just feel like as a teacher, like, why would you do that? It's one thing to like call on students. It's one thing to be like, okay, who knows the answer? Let people raise their hands, like what the doctor did with Genesis, when he was like, who knows who reads and who knows who gave this quote, and then Genesis was like, I know it's such and such. He's like, good job. Like that's something that I do as a teacher. But the way that they just like pick on their students and just call them to the front to kind of like humiliate them, it's fun to watch, but it's kind of horrifying for me as a teacher. I'm just like, who does this? This doesn't help anybody learn. This helps everybody be so terrified that you're going to pick on them next and bring them to the front of the room and humiliate them. We saw it when Reno pulled Caleb to the front and was just like, oh yeah, let's see how smart you are. And then in this episode, the doctor pulls, first of all, he like dresses down the guy with the curly hair who doesn't have a name. And then he pulls Darum up to the front and is just like, well, stand here and debate your point or whatever. That's just another nitpick of mine of like, why are these teachers so mean? Okay. Another thing is, this is maybe a prediction question. I'm not sure, but I love that this was a backstory episode for Jaden. And I now want a backstory episode for everyone, except for Ake. I want them to keep dropping hints about her backstory and never like connect the dots. I just want to always be crazy stories about stuff that she's done. But I want a backstory for every character. I especially want a backstory for Sam because I want to see more about her colony of photonics. I'm assuming they are all holograms, so maybe they're, and I said this on the first episode review, maybe they're descendants of the episodes from Flesh and Blood from Voyager, those sentient holograms who rebelled against the Hirogen and went off to live their own life. Or maybe they're related to the photonics we saw in the Voyager episode Bride of Chaotica, who were photonic beings, like they were just light beings. But I don't think so. I think these are holograms because the way that Sam was just like oozing over the doctor and just like, oh my gosh, you're the doctor, you're the EMH, like she's clearly a hologram and not like a photonic light being from another dimension. But I want to know what their colony's like, and the fact that they sent her to the academy to like learn more about organics. I want the backstory. I also want the backstory on the doctor. I want to know how he survived the burn. Where has he been? What has he been doing? Is this Doctor 1.0, the doctor who made it to Earth on Voyager with Janeway, or is this Doctor 2.0, the doctor who left that planet, Living Witness, where he was, reconstructed in the future and then set off for Earth? I want to know. Or can we see what happened to that second doctor at some point or hear about them? I'm just so curious. I don't want a backstory about every single character, every single episode, right? Like, I don't want to be like, next week is Genesis's backstory. Next week is Darum's backstory. I don't need that. I like how they had the Darum-centered episode where we could just find out that his family history is kind of crappy and that's enough. We don't need more. But eventually, like, let's say the show goes on for like 5 seasons or 7 seasons. At some point, I want backstories for every single main character and all the teachers. Okay, predictions. All the like main teachers. Predictions. The next episode, I know some people look into this stuff. I do not. I do not look into what's coming up. I go into it very blank. So the next episode, I am thinking will be about Caleb's mom and Braca again, because it is the midpoint of the season. It's episode 5 out of 10. And I feel like we need to circle back to that whole storyline because that was really big in the pilot, in the premiere. And I think it's going to be really big in the finale. So this is the perfect time to circle back around to that and get some more movement on that front. So I think this is going to be about Caleb's mom and Braca. I think this time Caleb will have to face the danger with his Calica team, which is the same thing he did in the first episode, except for they were all strangers. Nobody knew each other. Now they're like a team and they're friends and all of that. So I think they're going to have to work together to save the ship, save the day. I think we're going to get more Tarima romance in the next episode because we haven't had that in an episode. Like, we haven't had that since the last episode is what I mean. And then I wonder if we're going to get a new teacher reveal because we haven't seen Tilly yet. And I remember when this show was announced, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I had the feeling that it was like the Tilly spinoff, the same way they were talking about how Section 31 was going to be like the Georgiou spinoff. Like, I thought this was going to be like the Tilly spinoff, but there hasn't been any Tilly. And I'm not complaining. I like Tilly. But I'm happy with what they're doing now. Like, this is plenty. Like, I'm liking seeing the Doctor being just so mean. I'm liking seeing Reno, and I'm liking seeing, like, them playing sports and just kind of their everyday slice of life. So it's not like I need Tilly in every single episode, but just because it seems like it was pitched as like, we're going to get more Tilly, I wonder if we're going to see her in the next episode. And I wonder if she's going to have like speaking parts, or if it's going to be the kind of thing where we just see her walking in the background and we're like, was that Tilly? I don't know. At the time of this recording, the new episode drops in like 2 hours. So I don't have a long time to wait, but those are my predictions for what I think will happen next. Okay. I'm going to check the chat and then I'm pretty much done. Okay. Sorry, just trying to find where I left off. Chaotic Truth says this episode is the rainmaker for the series. Pretty sure this show will do many more Klingon episodes. Don't know. Oh, that's cool, PS2 Chipper. Oh, that's cool. A cabin in the woods for a week and a half. That is a long vacation. Well, enjoy that. Have fun. Chaotic Truth says time travel episodes will really allow the show to be compared to Legacy Trek. Going back to the Dominion War would be incredible. And I'm starting to believe that we are going to see Section 31. I can only surmise that they would recruit kids from the War College and not the Academy. Yeah, I mean, if they want to not be caught, I feel like with the movie, they recruited from the Academy instead of the War College. Like, that's where it all went wrong. That's where everything fell apart, is you just didn't have really sneaky spies to do really sneaky spy stuff. But yeah, the cool thing about the show is we could totally have Section 31 show up. We could totally have Wesley and other travelers show up, Corey show up. We could totally have, like, there's so many options for what we could do. Also, if we had holographic interactive educators, we could also have any of the old Legacy crew members show up. I mean, maybe they'll show up as their older selves, but they could also do like a CGI and make them their younger selves, but as a hologram that's teaching like a special course or something like that. So I feel like there's just a lot of opportunities here of things they could do. Wingrace says the next episode is named after Sam, so fingers crossed. Oh, is it? Oh, I'm looking like I have that written down on my notes. I do not. Karen says, I thought tomorrow is supposed to be about Cisco. Wingrace says, it's about Sam learning about Cisco. And then says, never mind, skip my chats, which is hard to do when you say that at the end, right? Patty says yes, especially when Caleb talked about his mom. Yeah, he closed it with talking about his mom. Ooh, okay, if next week's about Sam and Cisco, ooh, that's so curious. Oh, I can't wait to see this then. So if it's about Sam and Cisco, then it's not about Caleb and his mom. Maybe it'll be episode 6. No, in a week and a half. Oh, okay. I thought you were saying for a week and a half. Well, gosh, if you're going to go to a cabin in the woods, PS2 Chipper, I hope you go for longer than a day. I get you're going for Valentine's Day, but I hope you go for longer than a single day. All right, that is it. Those are my thoughts. Those are my feelings. I really enjoyed this one. A lot of tears. Like, I cried a lot in this episode. I think it will hold up. I like this one way better than last week's with like the whole War College prank war situation. I was kind of like, meh. By the end of the episode, I liked it, but like more than halfway through, I was like, so I like this one way better. I liked the backstory. I liked Caden figuring out who he is. I actually like that more self-identification thing more so than like just general teen angst, which is what I felt like last week's episode was more of. It was just like us versus them. And it just felt a little bit more, I don't know, jocks versus nerds, which is fine, but it's not such of an internal struggle that anyone could relate to. It's more superficial, I guess. Anywho, whatever. We're going to see. Enjoy the cabin. Don't read from any books in the basement. Yeah, seriously. And also, if any games, PS2 Chipper, if you hear any games that are like thump 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 that are like hidden in the cabin, don't play those. Do not play those games. Don't play them. Okay, so that's it for now. We'll find out what happens next week. I'm excited. We're getting an episode about Sam because she's such a fun character. There was a scene during the debate where the doctor's just like, next. And Sam comes up and she looks over and she goes, Caleb, hi. And he's like, next. Like, he doesn't even give her a chance to debate. And I thought that was really funny. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for joining me live. Thank you so much for joining me on the replay. And I will see you next time.